Hold on. Before you watch the rest of the video, I have a new site on Tippy where you can see lots of unseen videos and more. Link in description. Don't miss out. Join the team and enjoy the video.
So you want to be specific. You want it to,
Well, I
to
would,
reflect
because I
the
think,
specific.
so in this case, because it was something that came up, the timeframes were discussed quite a bit. He explained what was involved and said it would take it at least a year. At least a
Okay,
year.
all right, so, such a change, he indicated it would take at least a year. Would that be-
We're still making up for the COVID gaps, and so the number of students that the reading tutor is servicing is increasing as she works with more older students to close gaps. We also are fortunate.
I just wanted to, just because the way it worded here, I just wanted to make sure I knew. So it does you can have tier 3 support without being identified.
Yes, because a student could be on a personal learning plan, for example, and receive OT or speech services and not be identified as a special education. Generally, it does result in a referral because then you have that bigger discussion about where to go next. And with these children, it ended up that they were not only referred, but many identified. What the goals are and what they're working on. So it's a really great system at our school. I'm just seeing that the needs are growing.
Yeah. Other question?
Just one more. Do you have any of your teachers signed up for letters as well? I just was curious if our elementaries would be similar.
Because it's 2 years, so I believe it starts in September, so I think there's another one after that. So it might be just something to think about sooner rather than later to the primary teachers, because it's a great opportunity.
Absolutely. On the background, or for whom Canterbury is their second or third school. You know, it's not all kids who've always grown up there anymore. And so it just comes with some unique challenges. Only in person a couple of days a week, and we're trying to kind of recapture their skills and get them caught up to speed.
You know, we always couple that with a visit to the elementary
Yep.
schools in the morning, and we had a spaghetti dinner, and
Yep. Hi. Okay, that's all questions people have. Guess for you. I guess I have one question, but it relates to the 2 elementaries and the middle. And it's not discipline related, I don't think, but Mr. Hill talked a lot of mess. It related.
I needed to talk more, I guess.
Right. I was like, well,
I always do, right?
let's ask it now. Okay, Mr. Finch. Questions for Mr. Finch?
I have some questions for Mr. Finch.
All right.
So in theme setting for moving forward, I loved
A couple of different spots in here that we did was really amp up the digital distraction policy. That was a big one. Kids were just disconnected. They're on their phones. As much as it sounds like oh my God, kids are on their phone, everybody talks about it. It is an issue, like epidemic. Like it's awful. So if you look at the discipline data as well as in my principal's report, we had hundreds, almost 300 total digital distraction violations this year. And that led to a series of growing consequences for students. And that, you know, is not only raising the bar, but it's also, you know, trying to provide students more of a structure, I guess, to stay. I mean, it's in everything that we do. You know, the teachers were working on creating additional opportunities for students to apply information in their classroom. The past 3 years, we would have students who would tell us as they were walking around the hallways, and it was true, they were essentially done. 2 weeks, maybe more, reteaching and relearning and stuff like that happening to the end. Now students are literally learning to the end of each of their classes. The last days of school, are spent doing cumulative assessments. And we had some students, and I'm not gonna name them, but I can think of some big cumulative opportunity, and everything came together, and they were able to demonstrate to the teacher that they were ready to move on to the next level of that subject. So, it was behavioral, it was academic, it was structural. The third, fourth, and fifth, parents had to come and pick it up. So it started to grow. And honestly, he needs it. He's gonna go to work, he's gonna do this, he's gonna do that, I can't make it. It's like, well, then I'm gonna have to work 10-minute break between blocks 1 and 2. But during last summer's faculty council retreat, it was proposed that we make a change to that. The reason for that was students were coming in to block 1, then they had a break. Then they did block 2, then they had TLT, then they went to block 3. That was great. We definitely had some parents who would get frustrated on the phone with me, and then that student wasn't bringing their phone to school for a while. Because I am not getting another phone call, I am not leaving work to come get your cell phone, this is ridiculous. And so, I mean, every administrator who's sitting in this room has been on the phone with people who were frustrated about things that we knew full well were not something that they were actually frustrated with us about,
Right.
but we were the one making the call. So yeah, people would get frustrated about it, but we knew the frustration was that we were also doing week-long phone suspensions, where a student would come to school and the first thing they were to do was come into the main office and drop their phone off, just like their phone had an out-of-school suspension for 5 days, or an in-school suspension, I guess. It sat on the desk behind Miss Conway for a week. And when it's like cutting off a limb for some of the kids.
Yeah.
So, we tried to build a policy and a practice that, strike 1, strike 2, like, this is the last one, you gotta keep this in mind, and then all of a sudden, your parents are getting involved, you're losing at the beginning of the day, through the day, and it was working. I believe it was working. It was one of my favorite emails that I got this year. A parent got her daughter's first semester report card and then emailed Mr. Hayward and I and thanked us for the digital distraction.
It was like 96 for one student.
That was a student that ended up going into the ABLE program at BES because we exhausted all of our tier 2 and tier 3 supports and determined as a team between the 2 schools that was the best placement.
And I know I probably asked this last year and I'm gonna ask it again. Can you provide some examples of minor defiance?
At elementary level, it's often a refusal to leave the playground for up to an hour when recess has ended.
I was out there for an hour and a half.
Yep.
In a couple weeks before school. Yeah.
And we'll go out and everybody else goes in and has their class and we supervise that student who is refusing to cooperate.
I'm assuming, and I feel like horrible even saying this, but you tell the student that they have to go inside. It's not like they're just supervised.
No, they know they're supposed to come in, you follow the different protocols.
They're not going anywhere.
Yep.
And if you go up there, then they run, and
Right.
they'll run to a different area, so you have to kind of
Supervise.
corral them into the, because if you do try to go get them, they will move, but then they'll move in a more unsafe
Correct.
situation. That's what usually happens.
Same,
Yeah.
same, yep.
And that's minor defiance.
It's definitely frustrating.
That's minor defiance, was Randy's question, or is that?
It depends on the circumstances of the situation.
I would mark that as major defiance.
It depends on the
Depends,
circumstances. I've had a child who comes in within moments, that's
Yeah.
going to be minor.
A lot of it is work avoidance, a lot of it is those types of social situations where the kid's in front of their peers and is refusing to comply with a teacher. Hey, Mr. Saunders, could you bring it down to the calf? Similar, if we can get that student away from their peers, in a reasonable amount of time and get them back on track, it's a minor defiance. But if we have to escalate into really giving a tough choice for a kid.
Well summarized.
Jeff, you had a question?
Do these kids repeat this after you tell the parents about this, or?
The next day,
Yeah.
it's possible. No.
What is the reaction that you get from parents?
It depends on the family. We have folks who are apologetic and they want to know what they can do to support us. Or they say, you know, I'm seeing the same thing at home and I don't know what to do either.
My pleasure.
Anything you want to, I mean, can ask questions, but
You
anything.
have the report, I won't
We do.
read it to you. But just really kudos to all the people I traditionally mention at the beginning of each
Yeah.
year. I concur with the rest of the administrators. Our school resource officer, the only thing I would say is we need more of him or that person, like all of us. We need, you know, that person, we need, full-time would be awesome if you could manage that. Our school social worker, Melissa Allen, if we could have, there were 94 last year, it's 68 this year. It's still a lot, and so, you know, I thought that it just felt high. As Mr. Finch alluded to with the technology piece, we have a strike 1, 2, 3 rule in our school, so we don't go strike 1, 2, we just go right to 3, and this is a policy that's been in place in the middle school for a long time now. So it just is worked for us. We tell kids, phones turned off in your locker, period. You can't even have them on you. Earbuds, same things. So for middle schoolers, I think it works. They feel or they felt until the recent policy change at the high school. I can't wait to get to the high school. Sorry. But it just, when we confiscate a cell phone, it comes to the office and I call the parent and say, I'm really sorry that we don't give them back. I think one funny story about that, a fifth grader, we really struggle with this. Like, just had a fifth grader, right? He's 10 or 11. And by the last 3 weeks of school, I called the parent again, hey, really, Tim, do me a favor, just keep it till the end of the year. And I did, and it really reduced his kid's distraction, so. You know, it's something that, you know, middle schoolers are all over social media, and that can be an issue for us as well. A lot of the drama has some social media component to it. And, you know, as we spoke to earlier, with some of the defiance pieces, you know.
They didn't.
Well, we had some kids move in and move out, and we had a couple of real heavy hitters in 8th grade last year, whom I don't think are in the district anymore.
Okay.
And we had a run this year, interestingly enough, to that point where some kids who struggled with attendance and or behavior, parents, we had a run of parents just saying.
Because they were.
Correct.
Right.
You have another question?
I do have a couple questions.
Okay.
You indicated that you could use more time from the SRO. About how much time does the SRO currently spend at the middle school?
AP?
I would say he spends more time at the high school. It's hard to put a number on it because, you know, he started well into the school year. We've spent a lot of time with Steve in court as well too, supporting both middle and high school students. I would say, I don't know.
Probably about right.
Yeah. I think initially, if I may, you know, Steve really did a nice job getting to know
Yeah, absolutely.
both campuses and kids, but I think just naturally, some of the needs lent themselves more to the high school.
As
And-
Aaron was talking about at CES, we had a couple of individual scenarios that led to a lot of his attention at high school.
And that's good, because when we talked about the SRO, like we talked about.
He made a point to come and visit at lunch or recess. He really liked the Gaga Ball Pit. He's come to a couple of assemblies. He's been visible in a way that I'm pleased with. And we'll continue to partner, so that continues.
Good. Other question?
One last one, and it's just more of a comment. So, Mr. Saunders, although you mentioned the decrease in students that were a result of behavior, I have a middle school child and who is convinced that there are secret passages that you access.
Did I tell them that?
They said that you
It's something that could have come out of my mouth.
pop them everywhere.
That's good.
When I look at the average average referrals per day, it gets significantly higher for discipline reports in the coming of the spring months. Is it possible that there is a correlation between, it's getting warmer and kids are, getting antsy and going around, and we have all these increased behavior issues, and then teachers are like, I need.
Not this area.
Yeah.
I want that in the minutes.
You want a video then?
So, there's a detailed report. We talked already about a lot of the technology, but what other questions do we have?
Adding our behavioral support monitor has been big. Having a space in building where somebody can monitor a student who is exhibiting unacceptable but not necessarily unsafe behavior, to limit our out-of-school suspensions and
I don't know that I'm asking a question there. It just surprised me. I had
Yeah.
expected, given last year we brought in
Yeah.
school suspension, I don't know, when did we do that? Halfway through the year?
ish, yeah,
No, it was halfway.
Yeah, says right before Christmas break.
consistently. We're gonna have a female administrator in the building next year, but we haven't had one for the previous 4. So honestly, Jamie has helped us with that too, checking, ladies' bathrooms.
So you said the ninth and 10th grade were the most
Yeah, the numbers were higher there.
challenging.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads into, I think, Michelle, what you were talking about with the challenging last year being 8th grade, transitioning to 9th.
Yeah.
The highest numbers were not our 9th grade, they remained our 10th grade.
Okay.
Choose not to go into much detail on it.
So strategic direction. I can start the conversation and hand it over to Mike.
Expired at the end of this year. But it expired in January of '22. Because it was noted as a 5-year plan that went to the end of '22.
Okay,
So basically it expired in
All right.
January 1st.
so we need to
23.
talk about organizing.
Had already been established, but I was part of the process to put the action strategies to the strategic direction, which was the whole, basically the back end of the strategic direction document. It was originally facilitated by an outside facilitator that came in, and principals can jump in on this as well, that were here as part of that process. They hired, I believe it was B. McGarvey, to come in and help facilitate that work for the strategic direction and work with the board. Am I correct there? I know you were part of that as well, Greta. And so the common thread is that there was an outside facilitator to facilitate the process of developing the strategic direction for the district. And the purpose behind that is to be part of the conversation, and they can't be part of the conversation if they're facilitating the process. That's the purpose of an outside facilitator. So to that note, we should start exploring potential outside facilitators and the cost associated with that. We would have to budget for that. So I think it's going to come up in the budget development process. I believe it was UNH Survey Center that helped put together the culture survey, but I think that was driven by specific board members. And again, I think if we're looking to try and get a sense of where the district is at this point when it comes to the culture, I think culture survey is a good thing to do. We've generated these conversations around competency-based grading and reporting. I think that's the place to wrap that into, to really see the direction that the entire district would want to go in that. I think that'd be part of it, but I think the next steps would be exploring outside facilitators and the costs associated with that, and just have
Some parameters around what we are wanting, or we have to put it out there and say, you tell us what you would approach it. I guess we could do it that way. There's 2 ways to go about it.
I think one of the things we don't want to do is lose sight of all the hard work that went into the one that we had established for 5 years. I mean, there was a lot of work that went into that, but and on that note, that was
that was back in 2015. Silas and I sat in a seminar with a group that actually does the work. Their low end to come in was 30,000. Their high end was 90,000. So which is just unreasonable of a cost, but that's the difference between there could be a wide range depending on what we're asking of that outside facilitator.
And do we know about how long the timeline was? Like from start to finish the last time?
It's usually a start in the fall, mid-fall, and work its way all the way through the end of that school year. So potentially a year. Again, it depends on what we're asking. I feel a revision would take less time compared to a completely redo.
And it's still on our website, so on the front page of the website, it's strategic direct on the right-hand corner.
Which is currently
Side
what we have in
shortcuts.
place, even though there was an expiration date.
Walk away.
It's like, oh, that's.
Conversation has ended.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll get that process started.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
Well, thank you.
Next up, competency-based grading and reporting. So one of the things, to at least frame the beginning of this discussion, is that we learned last time that the teachers union, and I see Mr. McNabb back there, he is the president of the teachers.
I haven't heard any issues around the grading scale, quite honestly, that was ever brought to the attention that we had to review and revisit it.
I wouldn't say the high school, I'll just speak from experience. I mean, I realize that, but others might say that students at the high school do receive a 4.
They said it was inconsistent.
Oh,
or
I
something.
100% agree with inconsistent, but I
There are
just,
standards if they don't receive a 4 maybe
yeah,
yet. They're not.
Yeah.
But they're definitely do
it's-
receive 4s.
right. But I agree with you, it's inconsistent.
And at the elementary level, you're focusing on foundational knowledge, and if you look at that 1 to 4 grading scale, your foundational knowledge pieces are at the 1, 2, and 3. So that's one of the differences as well at the elementary level on a 4-point scale.
So I'm curious, principals, assistant principals.
Like final and what is not.
That's a good question. I'm not sure why it would say in progress.
Other principals?
I personally think they both summed up where I'm coming from very well. As Michael said, we talked about this topic at DST, and we were asked to go back and survey our staff, and CES is very supportive of keeping things as is. In general, that's the consensus I've received. Mainly the topics, these two already talked about, that everything's housed in one place, that they've put in the time and energy to understand it and use it effectively. When new folks are brought in to the team, they work together to get everybody up to speed and on a consistent page with it.
There's nothing specific that defines what success at a level 4 would look like. So that would be an area that we would want to look at. Can we define a little bit more specifically what would success look like beyond what was taught? For the middle school, I think it's really just taking what's there and doing a little bit of reformatting and adding in more about conceptual knowledge. There's a lot of I can statements in there, which are great when we're talking about applying a skill.
Basically came out of the survey that was taken that we didn't know existed at the last meeting. So, I mean, I guess that would be a good segue at the next meeting, is to determine what the path is.
So I think to Jill's point, I think we meet on the 25th here. And then we meet August 8th.
Well, I'm not doing the minutes, so.
And the minute's already saying noting conditional approval.
Okay, well.
There we go. Good job.
You did say that.
Exactly what I said.
Okay. Any additional discussion? Okay, all those in